How's everybody doing today? Is everybody feeling good? So can I ask with a raise of hands, how many people have been here since 9 a.m? There's a good number of you. So since you've been here, about 4.6 billion phishing emails have been sent globally. This is quite a lot. It equates to about 10 million per minute. So every 60 seconds, 10 million new phishing emails are sent. Each spam sender in that minute has stolen about $5, which equates to £3.70-ish. By the end of my talk, they'll be up to $150, which is £112, and in 24 hours, by the end of the day, they'll have taken about $7,000 or £5,200. It's kind of scary. So my name's Ceara McCurdy. As you said, I work in user experience at Rapid7, and this is just one of the things that we're thinking about whenever we're designing software for our users. It's just one of the many scenarios that kind of goes through our head. So today I want to talk to you about some of the things we try to do to empower our users so they know what's happening, to make them feel better, to make them feel more confident in these situations. It's going to be framed around security, but I'm hoping you'll be able to take away some of these thoughts and ways of thinking and apply them to your own projects and your own industries and even how you interact with things maybe on a day-to-day basis. So let's have a think about the world we live in. So the things we own are constantly trying to get our attention. Right, we carry our phones with us, constantly getting emails and social media updates and app updates and OS updates and news reports and all these things coming through. All of this results in noise. We live in a very, very noisy world. The problem for us in cybersecurity is that some of that noise is really, really important. So some of those OS updates that you're ignoring, some of them are actually really critical. Some of them you really should be updating and some of them are going to make you safer. On the other side, some of that noise are things that are malicious, those phishing emails, those spam emails. If you're not paying enough attention, if you're just clicking through, you're not really aware of what's going on, you might click on something that's going to harm you. So this noise is really damaging. It's not a great place to be. Let's take a step back. So I decided before this talk I'd have a look at my world. So this is mine and my husband's world in a visual form. We have laptops and desktops and mobile devices and IoT devices and fitness trackers and all this kind of stuff. Now, I work in UX, my husband's a software engineer. I thought maybe we were in the slight extreme of technology ownership, so I asked a few other people. It turns out we're not really. So on this screen, you have a range of different households, from a single person doing their PhD to a family with one child, a couple of families with two children, a family with one child, a family with no children. We've got a farmer, we've got someone who works in the civil service, we've got software engineers, we've got somebody who works in retail. So there's a wide range of different people. You can see up in the top right-hand corner there some of the lists of the things that people brought through to me. So we all kind of live in a world with a lot of technology. So based only on my stuff and the things that my friend told me, I decided to do a search. And this is what I found. This is a very quick search. There's a lot of stuff up there. So over the last 68 months, here are just some of the vulnerabilities, some of the things that have been reported happening for the devices that only myself and my friends have kind of had to deal with. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. Some of these are more mainstream. You might have seen up in the top left-hand corner there that elderly couple whose smart cam was hacked. Did any of you see that one? Where people in over 70 countries were watching this elderly couple just go about their day-to-day business, which is a bit creepy. There's some other stuff that's a bit scarier, you know, children's smart toys getting hacked, and Alexa's always listening to you, so be careful what you say, and she might send it to your coworker. I think that happened to somebody. And if anybody's listened to the news in the last couple of days, there was a report of the woman who thinks that somebody has attacked her, or has attacked or managed to hack her smart cam and might have been watching her breastfeed her child. There's some really creepy stuff out there. The problem is that we see some of this. So some of these in mainstream media, as I said, some of these are in slightly more security-focused sites that may not be in most people's sort of realm of awareness. But we kind of ignore a lot of this stuff. It kind of gets lost in the noise. We get those notifications to update our laptop. I'm going to guess that my friends who have children, whenever their iPad tells them you need to update your iOS, I'm going to guess they're going to say, no, I'm playing a game, I'm talking to my friends, leave me alone. So that leads me to the next point. We are the biggest security threat. It's what we do or what we don't do that makes our lives a little bit less secure. Of course, if we lived in a world where everything could be automated and, you know, the computers were in charge of everything, we'd probably be a lot safer, but there's no fun in that. So as I said in the beginning, phishing emails, scams, they're a big part of this. This is something we have to be aware of, and it's us who react to those things. So here's a few things that have come through. Some of them have come through to me, so there's a couple of emails there, I don't know if you can read them, offering me large sums of money, which are obviously not real, unfortunately. Then there's ones from PayPal, there's Apple, there's Amazon. The Apple and Amazon ones look very fake. The PayPal one, if you're not that tech savvy, you might be fooled by that. If you're not paying much attention, you might be fooled by that. And then if anybody's watching in the news reports of TSB's issue, so obviously TSB is migrating their data, they're doing all this stuff, and they just caused chaos. And TSB are generating a lot of noise because they're trying to fix this for their customers. They're generating all these notifications and things to tell their customers, oh, don't panic, this is what's going on. But because we see this, we know they're generating noise, people who are trying to phish people, they see that too. So they're slipping those emails in there amongst all the noise. It is genuine TSB information trying to help people, and they're starting to do things like this. And people are left with very serious financial situations, which is not good. So this is an individual level. This is stuff we have to worry about ourselves. Chances are, if any of us in this room get hacked, and hopefully that will never happen, it's going to be devastating for us, but it's not going to make mainstream news. It's not going to be a big deal. This is an exception. Some of them are exceptions, depending on what's going on in the world around us. But chances are, everybody will think, that's rubbish, I'm sorry for you, but let's move on. Our world, though, we're looking at organisations. So I want to introduce you to Sam. Sam is the head of security team at Alpha Bank. She's 5 people on her team, and her organisation has around 10,000 employees across 5 different countries. So UK, Ireland, USA, Japan, and Australia. So there's Sam's team. There we go, that's great. And these are the people that she has. Obviously there's 10,000 who don't fit in my screen. She has a lot of people that she needs to keep an eye on, and this is her world. This is who she's trying to keep secure. 76% of organisations reported being victim to a phishing attack in 2017. Now this is the same as 2016. So this number isn't getting better, it isn't getting worse, but this is something that is happening constantly to all of these organisations. So what this means, Sam and her team are pretty stressed. They really feel like they're just surrounded by the potential for something to go wrong. And of course, if something goes wrong, she works for a bank, it's a scary, scary place, right? So us as designers, as developers, it's our job to give Sam confidence. Okay, we need to give her confidence to tell her, look, this is what's happening, don't worry, this is what we're going to do. To do that, I'm going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about prioritise, inform, and react. If we treat everything the same, we are just adding to the noise. That's all we're doing. We're just adding more noise. So in the world of development, it's also so easy to sort of build things as we come across them. We sort of judge our days. We do ticket by ticket, story by story. If we're lucky, we get to work on bigger pieces, on features. If we're really, really lucky, we get to see a project through from start to finish. But more often than not, we're not really aware of everything that's going on in the system or how things play together nicely. And the problem there is we create things like this. So the system doesn't really know what's happening in other areas, and our users don't know what's happening in other areas. So our users don't know what to focus on. They don't know how to prioritize. Really, we should be saying, do this one thing. This is the most important thing for you. Go and do that right now. So we need to give them direction. So let's work on this. So Sam has software to track user behavior. Okay, so we're going to design software to track user behavior. She uses this software to try and identify unusual activity and make sure her users' accounts are safe. Because it's one of the main things she wants to do. She wants to make sure her users' accounts are safe. So where do we start? We're designing this software. Here we have 2 users and the events they've triggered in the past, we'll say 20 minutes. Okay, so we've got user on the left has triggered incorrect password 3 times and has locked their account. The user on the right had a successful login, 2 incorrect passwords and a successful login. Oh, sorry. So we know that people are trying to hack other people's accounts. We know this is a thing that happens all the time. So we know that potentially an incorrect password, that could be something malicious. It could be somebody trying to type a password that they maybe know most of, or maybe know all of. They maybe think, well, I know their old password to this, I'm going to add a couple of numbers on. So there's a couple of different reasons why that could be a malicious activity. On the other hand, most of us here today, I'm going to make a wild guess, me included, you type your passwords wrong all the time. You put the caps lock on, you've changed your password, you've forgotten what it is, you think you're in this site, and you just forget your password. So it's a funny situation. So if we start looking at this at the event level, maybe we feel we need to alert Sam each time somebody enters an incorrect password. So maybe this is where we start, okay? And what this generates from Sam's point of view in her interface is a list of notifications about what's going on. It's quite noisy. There's quite a lot of stuff here. If you imagine Sam, 5 people underneath her, a team of 6, there's 10,000 users. I wonder how often those 10,000 users type their passwords incorrectly and generate this kind of noise. So let's do better. We can do better than this. So maybe we bundle these notifications under each user. Maybe that's something somewhere to start. So we know that users and passwords are connected. So we can connect those things together. This is something you'll see quite often in social media. So social media does this very well. They bundle notifications. So you'll get, and you post a new photo and you get one like and it tells you who it's from. And then you get another like. And then they start to get, you've got 10 new likes, you've got 20 new likes, or you've got 10 Facebook friend requests, or you've got views on Instagram, or whatever. They bundle this all together. For some situations, this is enough. So in the world of social media, likes, friend requests, messages, really none of those are more critical than the other. Some users might find some more interesting than others, but there's no real level of criticality. There's no real information that you as a system or as a designer, you know what that user needs to see. So we bundle it together, we try to cut down the noise and we say, look, here's the key things that are happening in your system. Have at it. And that's where you might stop. But we can do better in the world of security. So the one thing we know about security is that we don't know everything. So cybersecurity has been around for about 30 years, give or take. So we know a lot, we've done a lot of research, but at the end of the day, our users always know more than we do. And that's the same for most industries. The users know more than you do. So we're going to allow Sam to give us some information. So she's going to tell us about these users. Whenever she puts these users into the system, first puts them in, she's going to tell us that Fox on the left there, he is an intern. He doesn't have much access to things. His account's quite locked down. He doesn't really deal with big things. He doesn't really deal with personal data. However, Dana over on the right here, she's a senior loan officer specialising in business accounts. She could have access to some quite critical, personal information, company information. She knows what companies need loans. She knows what businesses are maybe struggling and that maybe doesn't want to go out into the media. Or she maybe doesn't really want that information to be found out in case somebody can intercept anything that's happening in a financial situation. So what we allow Sam to do is tag that user. So Sam's going to tag that user and say, hey, this user's important. I want to know more about her. So what we're starting to do now is personalise that information that we're giving through to Sam. So Sam can now kind of see, well, actually, this user at the top, she's slightly more important. She's one that I flagged before. She's one that I'm interested in. Maybe that's where I need to go. Maybe that's the stage that I need to kind of go and look at. The other guy, well, I've not flagged him. He can wait till later. I'll go and investigate that later on. And again, at some situations, this is where you might stop. You ask the user for information. You start to personalise things. But as I said, we know quite a bit about cybersecurity and we can do better. So let's go back to what we know. We know that someone might be trying to log in maliciously. Is there any data? Can anybody think of what piece of information we might have that we might be able to add to that notification that might give us a bit more insight? I wasn't expecting any answers, but does anybody know? Anybody think of anything? Very close. So we'll do location, but similar. So what if we put the locations in? Okay. Now we've got a bit more context as to what's going on. So on the left, our intern, all of his situations, all of the events that he's triggered have all happened in Belfast. On the right, Dana has had a successful login in London, but she's had two incorrect passwords and then a successful login in China. Now, I said this happened over, 20, 30 minutes? I don't think our travel is that good, okay? I don't think that this is possible for Dana to have done. So maybe this is something that we need to flag. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to add that information into this notification because it's something that we know, we understand is critical. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we could do that location. There's a couple of different ways that we can think about it. We could, one, as I said at the beginning, we know where Sam has her offices. We could ask Sam for that information at the beginning whenever she's setting up her account or whenever she's putting in information. We could ask her, what locations do you not care about? And we'll tell you about the rest. That's one way to do it. We could use our knowledge and say, well, actually, there's quite a lot of attacks come from these certain countries, so we'll set those up in the system beforehand and say, well, actually, these systems will always trigger an alert. Or we could sort of start to learn with our users. So we could put it in and allow Sam to tell us, this was relevant, this wasn't. This is something to worry about, this isn't. There's a couple of different ways we can do that. But if you look at where we came from, so we started on the left with a whole lot of noise. We moved over to the right with a little bit more information and a bit more guidance for Sam. So now we've figured out what we need to show Sam. So we've prioritized, we've done that, we started to filter out the noise. Our next step is to figure out how we present that information. So I don't know if anybody noticed this, I put a little star. So whenever Sam said this is a high priority user, somebody I care about, put a little star there. And then I was consistent and I put that star over in the notification. This is what quite a lot of places do, we think about consistency. Is that helpful? Is this actually a helpful thing? I don't think it's that helpful. We don't know that Sam's the person who set up those users. Maybe she had somebody else in her team who went in and it was their job to sit and go through, here's the 20, 30, 1,000, however many high priority users, and tag all those users. They've seen those screens. Sam hasn't. Sam's never seen this icon before. She's never had a high priority situation. She's never had a notification like this. She doesn't know what this means. Now, we could make it so she hovers over it and it gives her a nice pop-up or a nice tooltip and it tells her what it means. There's other things we can do. So I'm going to take you away from security for a minute. I want you all to imagine that you're in a car driving down the motorway at 70 miles an hour. You had an early flight to, say, France this morning. You've got off the flight. You've rented a car. You're driving to your hotel. It's a couple of hours drive, right? So you've got this rented car. Your kids are screaming in the back seat. If you don't have kids, you've borrowed kids, and that's maybe worse. Okay? You've got your partner beside you. Your partner's not happy either. Everyone's just freaking out. You're in a high stressful situation. And then this happens. Okay? And I want to stop there and call out Acuity Design. They did a very good talk on emotional design around the engine warning light. So just highly recommend you go and check that out as well. So yeah, so this comes on. What do you do? We're all in a conference room. Hopefully nobody is very stressed right now. Hopefully everybody's quite relaxed and quite calm, okay? We can rationally think about this. We can rationally think through and go, right, well, I could pull into the side of the road. I could get everybody as far away from the car as possible because it might blow up. You know, if you're that kind of mindset, that's what you might do. You can kind of go, well, nobody else has seen it. I'm just going to ignore this. I'm just going to drive to the hotel. And we'll hope for the best there. You could pull in, you could phone the rental company and go, look, I've just driven half an hour, I rented your car, it's broken, what do I do? And wait 2 or 3 hours for them to bring you another car. You could go and try and find a mechanic and hope that they speak English, because you're in France, remember? Just hope that you can get the right person to do what you need to do. Okay, but they're not in that situation. So when you're in situations of high stress, your body releases a hormone called cortisol. Here's some science for you. This is what triggers our fight and flight response. This is what triggers us to act and sort of makes that adrenaline course through us. So a study was done in 2012. It was originally done in German, and the English title is Techno-Stress from a Neurobiological Perspective, if anybody's interested. But it looked at the potential for technology to trigger this hormone. Does what we interact with actually cause us to have these hormones released? And the answer is yes, particularly error messages and when systems don't do what you expect them to do. This starts to bubble and starts to cause us problems. It raises anxiety, it makes people irritable, it raises blood pressure, it causes a whole lot of things and you aren't thinking straight. I'm going to guess there's a lot of cortisol already in this situation, and the system that they're using has just made it worse, and it's not telling them what to do. So I went and looked a little bit more into this. What does this actually mean? What does this icon actually mean? So if the light is steady, it's not an emergency, usually. If the light is blinking, you need help, probably. It's all very vague. So I went and looked a little bit further and I found this and I thought this was great. This is from an American website. Try tightening your gas cap. This often solves the problem, but keep in mind it might take several trips before that light resets. Some vehicles have a separate indicator that warns of a loose gas cap before the condition sets off the engine light. Okay? So here's a solution to try. It possibly will solve what your problem is, but you might not know it's solved it because that light might still be on. And if you have the right type of car or the wrong type of car, this may be completely irrelevant, so ignore what it's saying. Right? This is the kind of information that's out there. What's really happening from a system point of view is there's a whole load of errors that are triggering this icon to come up. That's what's happening. Well, if you want to actually know what that error is, you take it to a mechanic, they read it, they tell you what's wrong, they charge you a load of money, and you get it fixed. Okay? I bet that there's some designer out there, some person out there from however many years ago, I didn't look that up, who designed this icon and is so proud of it. So they were probably given a huge amount of requirements and they had people chasing them down and saying, look, this needs to appear on a dashboard, and it's going to do this, and it's going to flash, and it needs to be identified by people from different countries and different languages. And I bet you somebody is really, really proud of this design. But in this situation, this isn't what you need. Okay, it's not going to be helpful. It's not the right way to deliver information, and we can do better. So let's go back into our situation. So we started here with the star. It's all helpful. Let's get rid of it. Let's not focus on that icon design. Let's give Sam the information that she actually needs. This is what she needs to know. She needs to know this is a critical user. She doesn't need a star. She doesn't need an icon. She needs the information there and then. Okay. So now we're showing Sam the right information in the right way. What's the last step? The last step is to show Sam what she needs to do next. So how to react to that situation. So hopefully most of you will have seen 404 pages. Be familiar with those. So this is one from Google. As you can see, it's got a very cute little robot in the right. Again, this is a little bit of a stressful situation. It's an error message. And all Google's telling us is, this is broken. That's all we know. That's not very helpful in this situation. I will say that Google, if you click on the Google logo, it will take you to the home page. But this isn't a great 404 page. This is sort of giving the user a dead end. Here's the information, stop. That's all this is doing. And here's a few more examples of some quite fun little messages that people have. So, unexpected error, please investigate. Okay, great. There's lovely Photoshop error. I use Photoshop all the time. I have no idea what this means. If this came up for me, I wouldn't have a clue what to do. And again, the only response is, yeah, okay. And then nice one at the bottom, your email could not be sent. Okay, why? What do I do? Can I try again? Can I do anything? No more information. So this kind of stuff comes up all the time. We focus again, in those tickets, those stories, we need to tell people that this has happened. We don't really think about the users and think about, well, what's that next step? How are we going to empower our users to do the next thing, to do the right thing? So here's a better example. Don't know how well that shows up on the screen. So this is MailChimp. So they have a nice little, cute little banana. It's MailChimp, so there's a banana because it's monkeys and that's funny. So they spend a lot of time designing this, right? But they tell us what's wrong. I don't know if you can read that white writing. It says, please use the navigation above or search to find what you're looking for. So the users reach the dead end, but here they have multiple options to go and do what they need to do. They don't feel lost, they don't feel confused, they don't feel stressed. Hopefully that cortisol isn't raising too much for them. Okay? So for us, here's our notification. We need to tell Sam what she can do. So why don't we do this? Let's give her an option. Let's give her something that's going to be useful. Let's tell her, do you want to lock this user's account? This is potential, there's a potential security flaw here, there's a potential security issue. Do you want to just do an action right now? Here's the action you should probably do. This is going to stop any more damage from happening. Right? So Sam can do this. Sam can then go to her manager or her CEO and say, look, there's the potential that something's happened. I need some time to investigate it more, but I've stopped any more damage from happening. We've given her some confidence. She's empowered. She knows what's going on. She knows what she needs to do. She knows what's happened. And she has the time to go and fix it herself. So hopefully, if we start thinking about our users, thinking about our systems, thinking beyond the ticket, going further and trying to figure out what it is we actually need to give to our users and tell our users at the right time, we can make them feel a little less stressed. We can't remove any of the scariness that's going on out there. It's potentially only going to get worse. But we can help them. And hopefully, if Sam's in one of the 76% of companies who've been phished this year, they won't make the big news because it's not a big deal. They've caught it in time. They've disrupted the hacker. They've prevented any real damage being done. And hopefully we as designers and developers, we haven't contributed too much to the noise of the world around those people. So in today's talk, I've touched a little bit on some sort of UX things. So if you're interested in learning anything more, here's some Nielsen's usability heuristics. There are 10 of them. I've only shown 4. I know that's not the same number. There are more of them, I promise. But if anybody's interested in finding out more, this is a really good place to start. This was generated in 1995, but it's still relevant. This is still what people use all the time. And it's all those basic rules of, speak the user's language, give the users information that they need, and it's a really good place to start. So I think I have a little bit of time for some questions, if anybody has any. If not, if you don't want to ask any questions, if I've scared you, you can catch me on Twitter. Yeah?
Do you find do software nowadays is becoming more like this? It's becoming more informative and less having to read those manuals to figure out what the heck's going on?
So the question was, do we find that in today's world we are getting better at this? We're getting better at showing the right information at the right time. I would say in general, yes. I'd say in general, yes, we are. But the problem exists that it's getting easier and easier to develop things. It's getting easier and easier to be involved in technology. There's so many startups, so many people kind of getting started. And those people, and even those people in big companies who've been around for a very long time, they're not thinking in this way. They're not thinking about the user. They're thinking about things they've maybe done the same way for 20 or 30 years, or they're just not aware of it yet. So I think it's getting better. I think that companies who are pushing UX and pushing customer experience and user experience are helping this become front and foremost. But I think there's still work to be done. Yep.
Do you find that two-factor authentication improves or wrecks the customer experience?
So the question was, do you think two-factor authentication or MFA contributes or causes any damage to the experience. So this is something we work with an awful lot, working in UX and security. We have to compromise. So at the end of the day, for us, we know our users. Our users want, the most important thing for them is their security. So they want that MFA, they want that two-factor authentication. Before we had it, we had people tweeting us going, why do you not have this? You're a security company. So from a security point of view, for us, that was the way that we need to go. As a UX designer, you want to be able to tell your users, whenever they type in their email address into a login form, hey, this email doesn't exist, are you sure you've got the right one? We want to be able to do that. That's what we want to be able to do. But in the world of security and in the scary digital world that we live in with everybody trying to hack everybody else, that's not possible and it's not the right thing to do. And it's that point we have to take a step back and go, would we rather our users had to spend an extra minute doing some action, or would we rather put our users at risk? And again, it's thinking about that full user experience. Would I rather have 50 people on Twitter having a go because your login form's not good, your login form takes too long, or would I rather have that one person who's talking to the big media outlets or who's phoning us to say, look, because of you, my account's been hacked and I've had this massive, massive trauma. And I'll take the 50 people who are getting a bit annoyed at the form any day.
See it like, the big four companies and some of the most popular apps in the world, or any of them, or do you think any of them are particularly bad at UX?
So the question was, do you think of any of the sort of the big companies, or are any of them particularly bad at UX? I would say that most of them have the money to invest in UX and most of them are doing quite well. I think all of them slip up, as Chris said, if anyone was here for his talk before, nobody's perfect. And there's always going to be bugs and mistakes. There's always companies that release things and you go, oh, that wasn't great. Even, so Apple produces new stuff and then there's a new bug. This happens all the time. Everybody slips up and there's mistakes. I do think that them speaking about it, those companies speaking about it and pushing about it are what's going to help the question that we had earlier, are going to help other companies be more aware of it. I don't think anybody's perfect.
You change the star to the text, which is really good in a desktop environment with screen, but smaller environments you just can't.
Yep. So the question was about developing for smaller screens. So I changed the star to text, and is that relevant in smaller screens? I would say there's ways to look at it. There's different ways to look at it. So in this situation, it is critical we have that text there. I don't care what size your screen is. You need that information, and we will find a way to include it. If the information isn't critical, if you are in a situation where it's not something that the user needs to do, and this is where you need to step back and think about the user, if it's information they don't need, then maybe something where they have to click see more, or they have to click is relevant, but it's understanding what's critical and what's not. And your screen size shouldn't affect that. If you're lucky enough to be able to work from mobile first, then you actually start with here's the critical information, and then you can add stuff later on. So if you're lucky enough to do that, then you're in a really good place. If you're not and you're starting from a desktop environment, just make sure if it goes down to a smaller place, you're still showing that critical information. You know what it is from the beginning. Yep.
Do you think, this is kind of coming off the 404 example, that companies in kind of a way to reduce the stress of putting like a 404 page or an error, they always include kind of like quirky pictures and gags or whatever they think. Sometimes too much of that could end up creating more stress because, you're being faced with all these jokes and these gags and stuff, but you're not actually getting the problem solved at the end of the day.
Yep, so the question was, so I showed a couple of 404 pages that had some cute images. Is humour always the right way to tackle those kind of situations? So I actually read an article about this whenever I was creating this. The answer is no, not always. There's some times where you do not want humour. If you're trying to do something quite serious, you don't want somebody going, whoops, we've lost all your information. That's not a good way to deal with it, right? There's situations where humour is right and there's situations where humour is wrong, and you have to know your users and know your environment. Again, this all goes back to understand what your users are thinking while they're doing it. 404 pages, you kind of have a bit of freedom because in most cases, you're not really sure what's triggered it, and most companies want to show a bit of personality through that, and it's a good example. But if it's a situation where it is something quite serious, humour, don't go down that way. You can still be branded, you can still show, this is definitely our company and whatever, but empathise towards your user. Think about how they're thinking, think about how they're feeling, think about that cortisol spike, and just think, is this the right way to go about it? Oh, yep.
Does accessibility play any issues in the design for security products?
Yeah, so accessibility is something that is really, really important, obviously. So one thing that we have that's interesting in the security environment is that we do have software that our users don't use our interface for. So we have users who just use it in the console. So we do have software that exists like that, and unfortunately people like me don't get much say in what happens there. But for accessibility, we do try to make sure that the things we do, they sort of adhere to most usability conventions that are out there today. There's things that we don't do well. Again, nobody's perfect. There's things that we don't do well, and there's things that we could do better. But when it comes to things like making sure content is readable from different people, from screen readers or whatever, we try in general, or I try and tell that to my developers and hope that they follow. When it comes to things like making sure your code has like alt tags and things like that, there's those little things we can do. We do a lot of research into contrast. We know that our users are going to be using certain types of screens, and they're going to be reading their screens all day in and out. So we do a lot of research into, is this screen going to hurt their eyes? Is the screen going to do them any harm throughout the day? So we do a lot of work there, but we could do better. One more question? We'll go, yeah. I haven't, and I'd ask you the same question. No, sorry. The question was, have you ever been called out for a phishing email? And I know Chris, and I know that he has. I don't think so. I'm one of those people, I'm one of those really annoying people that, you know, whenever they see an email come through and they don't think it's real, I send it on to spam at or report phishing at. I'm one of those nerds. I don't think so. I haven't been hacked so far, but they're getting more realistic, so there's always the possibility. Okay, so thank you very much, guys.